Winter nights bring an eerie stillness, a silence that amplifies every creak, thud, or whisper in the dark. Tonight, we delve into 3 bone-chilling stories that unravel the mysteries lurking in the shadows of a cold November evening. These tales remind us why winter isn't just about the beauty of snow but the fear of the unknown. Stay till the end for lessons on staying vigilant when the frost settles around you. Story 1. The Visitor in the Blizzard. The snow fell steadily, silencing the bustling suburban neighborhood where Alex lived. At 18, he was used to being home alone. His parents, both doctors, often worked long shifts, leaving him to fend for himself. He didn't mind. Solitude suited him. But tonight felt different. The blizzard had rolled in faster than predicted, transforming the streets into a white abyss. Cars were buried under snowdrifts, and the neighborhood seemed deserted. Inside, Alex wrapped himself in a thick blanket, sipping hot cocoa while the soft glow of fairy lights lit the living room. The power flickered occasionally, but it was nothing unusual for a storm of this magnitude. As the night deepened, a faint unease settled over him. The first knock. It came unexpectedly, a firm knock at the front door. Alex froze, his mug hovering midair. No one had any reason to visit, especially not in this weather. He set the cup down and approached the door cautiously, his socks sliding slightly on the hardwood floor. Peering through the peephole, he saw nothing. The porch light illuminated the swirling snow, but there wasn't a soul in sight. Still, something caught his eye. A set of footprints, fresh and distinct, leading up to the door. The strange part, they didn't lead away. Maybe it's just a prank, Alex muttered to himself, locking the deadbolt before retreating to the living room. An unseen presence. The hours crawled by. Outside, the storm raged on, wind howling like a restless phantom. Alex tried to focus on the movie playing on his laptop, but the earlier knock lingered in his mind. Then came the sound, a faint crunch of snow, almost imperceptible over the blizzard's roar. Heart pounding, Alex turned off the laptop. The silence that followed was deafening. Slowly, he approached the window overlooking the front yard. The tracks were still there, but now there were more circling the house. His breath fogged the glass as he scanned the darkness, searching for any sign of movement. The wind picked up, rattling the windows, and for a moment, Alex thought he saw a shadow shift near the edge of the yard. The man at the back door. A loud thud jolted him. It came from the back of the house. Grabbing his phone, Alex crept toward the noise. His hands trembled as he pulled back the curtain covering the sliding glass door. There, standing just inches away, was a man. The figure was tall, his face obscured by a hood and the storm's darkness. He pressed his gloved hands against the glass, peering into the house. When he noticed Alex, he leaned closer, his breath misting the glass. "Let me in," the man said, his voice muffled yet firm. Alex shook his head instinctively, taking a step back. "Please," the man insisted, pounding the door now. "It's freezing out here. I need help." Something about his tone felt off. It wasn't desperation, it was anger. The storm inside. Alex's instincts screamed at him to run, to hide, but he couldn't look away. "Go away," he shouted, hoping his voice carried over the wind. The man's demeanor shifted. His pounding grew more forceful, the glass shaking with each blow. "Open the door, kid. Do it now." Panicking, Alex dialed 911. His voice wavered as he explained the situation to the dispatcher, who assured him that help was on the way. But the man outside wasn't waiting. He began circling the house again, his shadow darting past the windows. Alex could hear him testing the locks, jiggling the doorknobs, and cursing under his breath. "Just let me in," the voice hissed now, more menacing than before. A battle of wills. Alex barricaded himself in the living room, armed with the closest thing he could find, a fire poker. He stayed on the line with the dispatcher, who urged him to stay calm and keep the doors locked. Minutes felt like hours. The pounding stopped abruptly, and for a moment, there was silence. Alex's grip on the poker loosened slightly, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Then, a new sound, a soft scraping, as if someone were trying to pry open a window. Alex's pulse quickened. He tiptoed toward the sound, his heart hammering in his chest. The curtains fluttered slightly as he peeked out, and there he was, the man, now using a crowbar to force the window open. "No, no, no," Alex whispered, backing away. The final moments. Red and blue lights flashed outside, cutting through the storm. The man froze, his hood turning toward the approaching vehicles. Within seconds, he vanished into the blizzard, his form swallowed by the swirling snow. The police found no trace of him. The tracks around the house were quickly disappearing under the fresh snowfall. As Alex recounted the night's events to the officers, a chilling realization set in. The man wasn't desperate for shelter. He had been watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The storm passed, leaving behind a still, frozen landscape. For Alex, the silence was no longer comforting. Every knock at the door, every crunch of snow outside would forever remind him of the man in the blizzard, a visitor who came with no intention of leaving peacefully. Story 2. Footsteps in the snow. The first snowstorm of the season had transformed the small New England town into a postcard-worthy scene. Mark, a first-time homeowner, relished the sight of his cozy house blanketed in white. The crackling fire in the living room provided a warm refuge from the frigid night outside. This was exactly what he dreamed of when he purchased the house, a quiet retreat from the chaos of city life. The clock struck midnight as Mark sipped the last of his hot chocolate. The house creaked softly, settling in the cold, a sound he had grown used to during his first few months there. The soft hum of the heater and the distant howl of the wind were soothing, lulling him into the edge of sleep. But then he heard it, a faint thud from above. The first noise. Mark opened his eyes, staring at the ceiling. "Probably just snow sliding off the roof," he muttered, trying to dismiss the sound. But as he listened, the noise came again, sharper this time, like something or someone deliberately stepping. He sat up, his heart beating faster. "It's nothing, just the house." Still, unease gnawed at him. He grabbed the flashlight from the side table and hesitated before heading upstairs. The second floor had fewer rooms, just his bedroom, a guest room, and a small storage area. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking louder than he remembered. When he reached the top, he shone the flashlight down the hall. Nothing seemed out of place, but the air felt colder. The tracks on the roof. Just as Mark turned to head back downstairs, another noise stopped him. A faint scraping sound, like nails on metal. It was coming from the roof. Swallowing hard, he opened the door to the balcony that overlooked his snowy yard. The biting wind hit him immediately, but what chilled him more was the sight in front of him. Footprints. Clear, fresh footprints in the snow, leading directly to the open window of the guest room. Mark's throat tightened. He knew he had locked that window earlier. His hands trembled as he scanned the roofline, his flashlight's beam darting frantically. No one was there. Mark stepped back inside, shutting the balcony door firmly and locking it. As he turned, his foot slid slightly on the hardwood floor. He looked down and saw it, wet tracks, leading from the guest room toward the stairs. Someone had been inside. Panic surged through him. His first instinct was to check the rooms, but the thought of confronting whoever or whatever was in the house made his legs feel like lead. Instead, he retreated to the living room, grabbing his phone to call 911. The operator's calm voice was a lifeline as he explained what he had seen. "Stay outside if it's safe," she advised. Mark grabbed his coat and boots, stepping into the snow-covered yard. From there, he could see the upstairs window still ajar. The footsteps on the roof glistened under the faint moonlight, disappearing beyond the edge of the house. The search begins. When the police arrived, their lights illuminated the quiet street. 2 officers entered the house while Mark waited outside, shivering from a mix of cold and fear. After what felt like an eternity, one of the officers emerged. "Looks like whoever it was is gone," she said. "But..." Mark's stomach sank. "But what?" "There are multiple points of entry, one on the roof and another downstairs, and it looks like they went through your belongings." "Did they take anything?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The officer shook her head. "Not that we can tell. It seems like they were searching for something." As the officers continued their investigation, Mark's mind raced. What could someone possibly be looking for in his house? He had no valuables, no secrets, nothing that would attract attention. Then a thought struck him, sending a chill down his spine. What if they weren't looking for something? What if they were looking for me? The idea seemed absurd, but the wet tracks, the deliberate noises, they all felt personal, calculated. The officers eventually finished their search, assuring Mark they would patrol the area throughout the night. But as he lay in bed hours later, every creak of the house felt like a threat, every gust of wind a whisper of danger. Days passed, and Mark tried to move on, but the sense of violation lingered. He installed new locks, motion detectors, and even cameras, but the footage revealed nothing unusual. Still, every night, he checked the windows, his eyes scanning the snowy yard for signs of footprints. Weeks later, as the snow began to melt, Mark noticed something buried near the edge of his property. Curiosity overcame him, and he dug into the icy ground, uncovering an old leather-bound journal. Its pages were weathered and illegible, save for one note scrawled hastily on the inside cover. "He's watching. Don't let him in." Mark's heart raced as he looked back at the house. For the first time, it didn't feel like home. Story 3: The Stranger on the Road. The snow-covered highway. The night stretched endlessly as Ella navigated the lonely highway. Snowflakes danced in her headlights, their hypnotic rhythm pulling her into a trance-like focus. She loved solo road trips, the quiet offering her a sense of freedom she rarely found in her busy city life. But tonight was different. The snowstorm had intensified, shrouding the road in a heavy blanket of white. Her car's heater hummed softly, a small comfort against the encroaching chill. The radio signal had long given out, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Then, she saw it. A car, stranded ahead, its hazard lights blinking like a distress signal in the sea of darkness. The decision to stop. As Ella approached, she slowed down, her tires crunching against the icy road. The vehicle, a silver sedan, sat at an odd angle, its front wheels partially buried in a snowdrift. Beside it stood a woman, her arms flailing frantically. She was middle-aged, bundled in a heavy coat, her face partially obscured by a scarf. Ella hesitated. Something about the situation felt off. Her parents' warnings echoed in her mind. Never stop for strangers on deserted roads. But the woman looked desperate, and guilt gnawed at her conscience. Against her better judgment, Ella rolled down her window slightly. "Do you need help?" she called out. The woman approached, her eyes wide with relief. "Yes, my car's stuck, and I can't get it out. Please, can you help push?" Ella glanced at the road ahead. It was empty, the storm swallowing any sign of life. She nodded reluctantly. "Okay, let me grab my phone to call for assistance first." "No need," the woman said quickly, a little too quickly. "I just need a push. It'll only take a second." A growing unease. Ella stepped out of her car, the freezing wind cutting through her jacket. As she approached the woman's vehicle, she noticed something strange. The back windows were tinted darker than normal. She couldn't see inside, but the faintest movement caught her eye. Her heart skipped a beat. "Are you traveling alone?" Ella asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The woman hesitated, her cheerful demeanor faltering. "Yes, of course. Why do you ask?" Ella's instincts screamed at her to leave, but before she could act, a shadow shifted behind the driver's seat. Her stomach clenched as the door cracked open slightly. A man stepped out, his face obscured by the hood of his coat. He was tall and broad, his posture exuding menace. "Everything okay here?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly. Ella stumbled back a step. I was just leaving." Another figure emerged from the woods lining the highway, his silhouette barely visible through the swirling snow. Ella's pulse quickened. Her eyes darted to her car, calculating the distance. "You're not going anywhere," the man by the car said, his lips curling into a sinister smile. The woman's demeanor had changed entirely. Gone was the helpless victim, her face now cold and calculating. Adrenaline surged through Ella as she turned and bolted toward her car. Behind her, the men shouted, their boots crunching against the snow as they gave chase. Fumbling with her keys, she yanked open the door and slammed it shut just as one of the men reached for her. The sound of his fist hitting the window echoed in the confined space. Ella started the engine, her tires spinning wildly on the icy surface. "Come on," she muttered, her hands trembling as she gripped the steering wheel. The men surrounded her car, one pounding on the hood while another tried to open the passenger door. The woman stood back, watching with a detached smirk. Ella floored the accelerator. The tires struggled for traction before finally gripping the road. The car lurched forward, sending the man in front stumbling into the snow. The chase. Her heart pounded as she sped down the highway, her rearview mirror reflecting the stranded group. One of the men climbed into the silver sedan, its headlights flickering to life. "They're following me," Ella whispered in disbelief. The narrow, icy road made every turn treacherous. Her car fishtailed dangerously, but she kept her foot on the gas. The sedan's lights grew closer, its engine roaring as it gained speed. Ella spotted an exit ramp ahead. Without thinking, she swerved onto it, her tires barely gripping the slick pavement. The sedan hesitated for a moment before following, its headlights disappearing momentarily in the swirling snow. The exit led to a small, deserted gas station. Ella's heart sank. The building was dark, its windows boarded up, but she had no choice. She pulled into the lot and killed the engine, crouching low in her seat. Moments later, the sedan roared past, its taillights fading into the distance. Ella exhaled shakily, her breath fogging up the windshield. She waited several minutes before daring to move again. By the time Ella reached the next town, her hands were still trembling. She pulled into a well-lit diner, relief washing over her as the warmth of safety enveloped her. The police arrived shortly after, taking her statement with grave expressions. The stranded car, they explained, was a common ploy used by criminals in remote areas. She had been lucky to escape. As Ella drove away hours later, the snowstorm finally easing, she couldn't shake the image of the woman's cold smile or the men's predatory gazes. Her solo road trips would never feel the same again. Winter's stillness carries a strange duality, a beauty that enchants and a quiet that unnerves. These stories, rooted in isolation and uncertainty, remind us of the razor-thin boundary between comfort and chaos. Each tale sheds light on our instincts, the warnings we feel but often dismiss. The creak of a floorboard, the shadow out of place, the faint knock on a snowy night. Are they harmless coincidences or harbingers of something sinister? In the vast, white wilderness, it's not just the cold that chills. It's the unsettling thought that someone or something may be watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. What would you do? If you were in Alex's shoes, would you confront the stranger pounding on your door? Or wait silently, hoping they'd leave? If you were Ella, would you have stopped for that stranded driver on the highway? And what about Mark? Would you dare to investigate the footprints leading to your own home? Let us know in the comments below. We want to hear your thoughts. Would you have acted differently? Or does the fear of the unknown send a shiver down your spine too? Join the journey. These spine-tingling tales are just the beginning. If you enjoy stepping into the eerie, the suspenseful, and the unexplained, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to stay updated. We have more chilling stories on the horizon, each one more haunting than the last. Until next time, stay safe, trust your instincts, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't what you see, but what you don't.